Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar, which will be focusing on Microsoft 365 in the modern workplace. Today, we have our very own cloud solutions specialists here at Bytes, Bruce Knight and Sajid Rafiq, and they will be presenting the duration of the webinar. Before I hand over, I'm just going to run through some very quick housekeeping for you. During the webinar, you'll be muted, but there is a little questions box on the right hand side of your screen. So if you have questions, which we'll go through at the end, just pop them into there and we can read it out on the live Q&A after the webinar is finished. The webinar recording will be made available to you after the webinar, and there is a feedback form that will pop up throughout the webinar. So I will just mention this again, and if you could just fill out the questions, we really do appreciate your feedback. That'd be really great. I'm going to hand you over now to Saj, who is going to kick off the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cassie. My name is Saj Rafiq. I'm joined by my colleague, Bruce. Do you want to say hello?
Yes, hi everybody, Bruce Knight.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Right, so today we're going to talk about Office 365 and Microsoft 365, and we hopefully will be showing you a demo of Microsoft Teams. Now, normally when we do this, it takes a whole day. We do a whole day workshop, and we are doing a couple of workshops throughout October and November, both in London and in Manchester. So please go to our events page on our website and register yourself for a whole day session, and there's no charge for those sessions. But just for today, we're going to do a quick introduction on who Bytes are, just in case you're not a Bytes customer. We're going to do a very quick overview of the differences between Microsoft 365 and Office 365. Those are two completely separate suites of products, and it's fundamental that we understand what the differences are between the two. A very high level view on licensing. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a license guru. I think licensing is a dark art form when it comes to Microsoft, and we do have a whole licensing team that can talk to you about licensing in detail. Okay, we're going to then do probably half an hour, just over half an hour. Bruce, my colleague, is going to do a demo of Teams, and then at the end we're going to do a quick Q&A session. As my colleague Cassie alluded to, you will get a copy of the PowerPoints that we are providing and a copy of the webinar recording, but we'll only give that if you do the feedback survey at the end of this webinar. Okay, let's start. So I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, because as I said, we've got a lot to cover. What I want to sort of say to those who are not Bytes customers, we are one of the UK's leading software specialists. And in this slide, what I want you to do is concentrate on the Microsoft Partner and Cloud Success icons in here, and just understand that, you know, we've sold over 2 million seats of Office 365. We truly understand Office 365 and business productivity. We are yes, we are Azure specialists, but we also do AWS and Google and Oracle, etc., etc. But both Bruce and I are part of the cloud solution team. Now, if you guys have not met us personally, please speak to your account managers and arrange a one-to-one with us. We're more than happy to do these workshops on a one-to-one, and there's no charge. That's the value add that we give our customers. If I had to explain Bytes to somebody, it's actually that we have 4 key pillars. The first key pillar is software asset management. I'm not going to go into too much details. You know, we are here to help understand your licensing and make sure that you are fully compliant. So if you are wanting a full audit, we can provide that for you. Intelligent licensing, yes, licensing is a dark art form, as I've said earlier, but we've got a special licensing team. Majority of our sales force, I would say 50% of our sales force, are MCP qualified. Okay, technology solutions, there's both Bruce and I are ex-Microsoft. Don't hold that against us. We understand Microsoft technology, especially Office 365 business productivity. We want to make sure that you get the most out of what you've purchased from Bytes. And services and management. You know, we're here to help you migrate and integrate and deploy that technology that you purchase. Right, now to the fun bit. Microsoft 365 and the main differences between Microsoft 365 and Office 365. Microsoft 365 is a combination of 3 suites of products. The first suite is Office 365. Okay, so you fundamentally need to understand what do you get with Office 365. And when I talk to a lot of people in regards to Office 365, and I say, well, what do you know about Office 365? Bear with me one moment. They always say to me, oh, well, it's SharePoint, or it's PowerPoint, or it's Skype for Business, or it's Exchange or Teams. And yes, they are right. But depending on which plan you purchase, you actually get a whole plethora of technologies within that plan. So it's fundamental you understand what you get with your plan. And again, myself and Bruce can come in and talk to you about that, but we're not going to go into too much details on that. If we go back, the next suite of products within Microsoft 365 is Enterprise and Mobility and Security. Okay, and so it's great being productive. It's great, that we can access our information anywhere in the world on any device, etc., etc. But we really want to sort of understand actually, what about the security arm of that? How do I manage identity and access? Okay, how do I manage the data? Okay, and the threat that I'm getting from external people. Securing and managing my environment is ultimately important, and Microsoft helps you that with the enterprise mobility and security. And underneath, you can see the applications or the workloads that provide that security. There are 2 plans with enterprise mobility and security, E3 and E5. We're not going to go into it too much in this session, but again, more than happy to go on it on one-to-one, or please turn up to one of our workshops. We do a whole afternoon just on this section itself. And the last piece is Windows Enterprise. We know that Windows 7 next year, 2020, is end of life. Okay, so it's important for us to actually be moving to Windows Enterprise or Windows 10 at least. Okay, Enterprise holds more security into there, so we've got things like Windows Hello, we've got Windows Security Guard and Device Guard. Again, not going to go into too much detail today because we've got so much to cover that I just don't have time to go into detail on that. But fundamentally, Microsoft 365 has 4 plans for enterprise, or for business, should I say. First one is Microsoft Business. The next one is Microsoft F1, Microsoft 365 E3, Microsoft 365 E5. And we should fundamentally understand what we are buying with each plan and what each plan does for us. Hopefully this will give you a complete overview of that, so you can see the difference between Microsoft 365 for Business, F1, E3, and E5. And again, Microsoft 365 Business is for those companies are 300 users or less. If you've got over 300 users, you'll be looking at an F1, E3, or an E5. And again, you can mix and match this. I don't have to buy E3 for my entire organization. I can have some E3s and some F1s. Okay, so hopefully I'll talk to you again a little bit later, but I'm going to pass over to my colleague Bruce, who's going to do a quick overview of Teams. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you, Serge. Let me just get my screen up and running here. Okay, so Serge, thank you very much for the quick overview of Microsoft 365 and Office 365. And I guess hopefully the main reason why a lot of you are on the call today is to have a look at Microsoft Teams. You may or may not be aware of the July 2021 sort of deadline for users to now migrate or upgrade from Skype for Business Online to Microsoft Teams. And I guess, along the way, there are going to be lots of questions on how you do this and how you can achieve that sort of migration path. It's pretty much twofold, I guess. It's the technical pieces around how do you actually onboard into Microsoft Teams, and then I guess the change management and adoption of the new Teams client. And over the last year or so, Microsoft have done a really good job in getting all those features. So the feature parity from Skype for Business into Microsoft Teams, I think, is now there, and they're also innovating and have achieved a lot more. So there's lots more innovation and more features and functionality now built into Microsoft Teams. The meeting experience is a lot better, and they've done a lot in the calling space as well to make that experience a much better one for users. So I think before we jump into the client piece, I just wanted to really quickly show you, if you're thinking about moving to Microsoft Teams, you currently use Skype for Business, you may have this scenario where you've got the Skype for Business client and you've got the Microsoft Teams client, and you're wondering how, from an end user perspective, you can sort of cut down on some of that noise between the two different clients, and how you can introduce Teams possibly in a gradual way, so that they can start to get that experience on using Teams, and then still have Skype for Business as a client until you completely phase that out. So there's a couple of different options for you as an administrator. So if you jump into the Microsoft Teams admin console, you may or may have not seen this already, but they've migrated a lot of the Skype for Business content into this platform as well. So they've done a good job at sort of unifying that, so that you can now start to customize and do all the admin features and controls from within the Teams dashboard. A couple of things I just wanted to point out before we jump into the Teams client demo. Have a look at under org-wide settings. You'll see there's a Teams upgrade sort of button over here, or navigation button. If you look in here, you'll see that there's a Teams only mode. And if you're a new user to Office 365, you're just signing up, this is where you'll kind of be set as a Teams only user. So by default now, if you're 500 users or lower, you're already straight into Microsoft Teams. You won't, by default, have Skype for Business turned on. And so you'll have this sort of turned on in the Teams only mode. But if you're already using Office 365 and you using Skype for Business Online, you may want to start thinking about your strategy and have a look at some of the coexistent modes that are available to you today from within the tenant. And it does a good job of explaining to you which one and what any of all of these are. So if you have a look at Islands mode, and you can also mix and match. So you could say, for a couple of IT users or pilot groups, you may want to have Skype for Business and Teams running in Islands mode. And this really means that you get the full functionality and features for both clients. So you can do everything in Skype for Business that you can today. You can start to use Teams, and you can have meetings in Teams or Skype for Business. So you really have the best of both worlds. But I guess when you start to roll out to end users, this may cause some confusion if you have both clients on the desktop. So that's where you can start to look at, okay, well, let's maybe use Skype for Business for chats and calls, but we want to use Teams for collaboration. Or you can go with Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings. So Skype will be there for chats, IMs, and the meeting experience, and you'll just use Teams for that collaboration experience. And then when you're ready to flick across, you can go into Teams only mode, and your users, when they sign in for Skype for Business, can get notified that they are now using Teams and have been upgraded or migrated to the Teams client. So they've tried to make it really easy, I guess, for the end users, and put some of these things into the clients. Like when I log in after I've been switched to Teams only, I'll be prompted to then use the Teams client instead of Skype for Business. So depending on your strategy, you may go for one or two of these, or have a mixed coexistence mode initially. And then hopefully before the July 21 deadline, you will switch across to Teams only mode. A couple of quick things just before we move on to the client demo is, around governance and security. You may want to just have a look at external access and guest access. So external access is really just that federation piece. So if you're using Skype for Business Online, you're probably familiar with federation already. That just allows you to communicate with chats and IMs with other businesses. So you can have open federation, which means you can communicate with any other external organization, or you might want to limit that to specific domains. And if you're moving across to Teams, that would just mean the chat piece and calling. So you wouldn't be able to have that rich coexistence around collaboration in Teams. If I go to guest access, you may or may want to not enable or allow guests inside your Teams environment. So if you enable guest access for Teams, This gives that user who's in your environment full access to all the components within the Teams group. So they'll be able to log in, do chats, do IMs, see the content, the files, collaborate on those documents, and pretty much be another user from within your organization, but as a guest access or guest user within inside your team. So just a couple of those things to have a look at. There are a lot more security and governance settings. Really quickly, I guess, if you're using data loss prevention or DLP today in the security and compliance center, you may or may not have seen recently or over the last couple of months, they've also allowed you to add to your DLP policies the Teams chat and channel messages piece. So you may have existing ones and you want to extend that across into Microsoft Teams. You can really easily go in and edit your DLP policies, click on the switch for Teams chat and channel messages, and that just means that you're any of those policies that you've already created or new ones that you've created will also apply if you have guests in your team. So if you've got a financial DLP policy and you don't want your users sharing credit card information or personal information, you can enable a DLP policy and it'll block or flag those messages when the user posts it to a team that has an external guest user in it. And I'll show you how that looks when we jump into the demo. So moving swiftly along to, I hope, the fun part where we'll actually get to show you the Teams client in action. So if you've never seen Teams, I'd be surprised. I think today most companies or organizations, there's lots of hype around Teams. A lot of people thinking about moving to Teams, looking at Teams today. But I'll hopefully, if you are new to Teams or if you've been a user of Teams, show you a couple of tips and tricks, some things you may not have seen or aren't aware of. So I'll jump into a demo now quickly on the Teams client. And this is what it looks like. There's obviously a dark mode as well if you want to. I think Microsoft are really big in their sort of dark mode. So the whole Office suite can go dark mode, also can the client as well. But let's start down the left-hand side here. There's obviously a couple of buttons that you can see. And you may, when you start up your laptop or computer in the morning, the first place you may go to is Activity. And this will just give you a feed of all the latest sort of activities that have jumped into your Teams client. So this could be somebody that has mentioned you in a team channel or somebody's messaged you one-to-one in chat. You can really quickly catch up and see what the latest sort of conversations that are happening across the different groups that you belong to in the activity bar over here. If we move on to chat, this is where you can have your one-to-one chat with a colleague. So this is typically where Skype for Business has always been around for instant messaging. The difference with Teams chat is that you have persistent chat. So I can have a one-on-one chat like I can at Skype for Business, or I can add additional participants to this chat. So I can go and say, this is a chat between Alex and myself, but we want to bring in a colleague. So let's have a look at bringing in somebody else. So I can find that person, Lydia, and I'll add her to this conversation. And then she'll be able to jump in and we'll have a three-way sort of conversation now instead of a one-to-one chat. So, we can go in and start chatting and we can pick up on the conversation that we've had. The other piece that you'll see or notice in the chat section is that you have access to something called bots. So this is where you can maybe upload or install an existing bot. So there's a couple of out-the-box ones that you can deploy into Microsoft Teams, or you may want to look at deploying or uploading a custom bot. So there's a whole host of different options available, and we'll have a look at those when we get into the app section. But it's really nice if you have maybe a Q&A or a knowledge base for your organization. You could go into Q&A Maker in Azure, upload those questions and answers, and then really easily create a Teams bot and deploy it into your organization. So that could be for IT or for HR, and somebody wants to know where they find the latest company handbook or whatever the case be, and the bot would be able to respond with a URL or an answer in natural query sort of style. So let's have a quick look at the Who bot. If I click on Who over here and I go in, this is a nice out-the-box one that you can add to any of your teams. But if I click in the type your question here, I could just ask it a question, or I can say, what can I do? and I can just say who is, if I want to find somebody, or I can say, well, who knows about, so maybe wanting to find an SME or an expert on a specific topic. So I can say who knows about, and we've been working on a new project called Mark 8, the code name for our new quadcopter that we're developing, and I'm new to the team. I'm just trying to find out who knows a little bit more about the Mark 8 project, so I can put that in there. You'll see the who bot starts to type, and then gives me a list of different people that are available that may have spoken about or posted something about Mark 8 in Teams. So obviously this is only will show results back for Teams conversations that I'm a member of, and not something that I don't have access to. So I might want to go in and see, well, who is Lee? Because I'm new, I don't know who this person is. I can see it's Lee Gu, he's director manufacturing. I may want to message him one-to-one. I can have a look quickly who he works with, who his peers are, or I just want to have a look at where he sits in the organization. So the quick organizational structure of Lee Gu. So moving on to, I guess, the core components of Microsoft Teams, the Teams section. So it's where it gets its name from, I guess. But you'll see here I have a list of teams that I belong to, and these could be ones that I'm owners of or just participants of a team. And I can really quickly see down the left-hand side here which teams I belong to. If you start to become a member of too many teams, it might get a bit cluttered, and there could be some teams that you probably work on more often than others, and you can really easily go in and say, well, this retail team, is nice for me to catch up every now and then, but I don't want to see it in my straight up front here, so I can hide that team and just see the teams that I belong to and the ones that I'm most active in. I can go back into hidden teams and jump back into that team, or unhide it again, so I can just go and show that one. But it's nice to sort of manage it, because you'll find, once you start adopting Microsoft Teams, that you'll very quickly start to become a member of quite a few teams, and it often could be a bit distracting to you. So just a nice way to sort of manage the view of your teams that are available. And you can also favorite different channels in a team as well. So at the top, you'll see this is the name of the team. So for example, we have Mark 8 project team. And when you create the team, you can add different members as owners or as participants. And then underneath that, you'll see the different channels. So you can think of a channel as a place that you can have different conversation topics. So by default, you'll get a general channel, but then you can also add additional channels. So you might have, for example, in this Mark 8 project team, one called design, one digital assets, web, so all different types of channels. And inside these channels, we'll have different conversation streams and topics. So we can kind of separate them out. So you'll have members of the sort of core team and then channels below that. So to create a new team, very easy. And I guess one of the big things that comes up every time we speak about teams these days is, do you want to allow everybody or every user in your organization, give them the capability to create a team? So I guess that's entirely up to you. You may want to put some governance around who can and can't create teams to stop that team sprawl in your organization. Because often at times you'll find, it's a new application. You're going to have users going in there, hitting the join or create teams buttons, and they'll just be creating teams left, right, and center. And within a couple of weeks, you'll have all these, hundreds of teams, and probably not too many of them will be used because it's new in the beginning and people just wanted to find out how they can create a new team and just sort of playing around. So if you don't want that to happen, you can put in some governance behind that. So there's a way to restrict which users can or can't create teams. But for now, so if I want to go in and create a new team, I can either build a team from scratch, or I can create a team from an existing group or teams. So this just means that if you're already using SharePoint Online and you may have created some SharePoint team sites, I may want to create a team from an existing team site that exists in SharePoint Online. So if that's the case, I don't want, I might have a team site for IT, and I want to, now that I've adopted Teams, just join that Teams conversation to the team site, and I can create that from an existing group or team. But for now, we'll build a new team from scratch. And there we have a couple of different options, private, public, or organizational wide. An org-wide one might be nice for, company announcements and those sort of things. and you may want to just restrict who can or can't reply to these ones. So you can put some governance around who, you might have a team that's just for informational purposes, and you don't want the noise around everybody sort of replying to those teams, and you can restrict who will be able to reply to those. Public just means that anyone can join that. So you may have a couple of public teams that users can go out and find and join, or you may have a private team, and this could be for an ad hoc project that you're going to start, or it could be for your manager and his direct reports, something for them to go into and catch up on and have meetings in. And so I'm going to create a new private team and just call it newbies. So this could be a team for new starters or hires in the organization, and this would be a great place for them to join and catch up on, I guess some things that new hires may, some information may be needing, or just if they want to ask questions about the organization that they've just joined. And this could be, let me just add some members. So we go in here and I can say, let's add Lydia, and we can add Alex. You can add users directly, or you can also add groups to make it easier. And here as well, I can select owner or member. And once we've added our members, we have our new team. And so, in Teams, we've gone and created a new team, but really in the background, what's happening is it's gone out and created myself a new SharePoint team site, an Office 365 group, a shared calendar, distribution list that we can use for email. So it's set that all up in the background. But as an end user, I don't really need to know about all those things happening in the background. But it's nice to know that, when you're uploading or storing content, that it's going into SharePoint online, where you may have some additional DLP policies or controls. It's all version controlled and turned, governance can be turned on to restrict certain content from going in there or being shared externally. And you can also invite external guests to join your teams as well. So once I have my new team, we can then start to do things like have a conversation in the start a new conversation box here, and this is where you'll go in and say, "Hi team, what's happening?" Or I might want to @mention somebody, so I can @mention a specific person in the team, and that'll just sort of call out that person. And if they're using the mobile app on their phone, they'll get a notification pop up. But I could say, "Hi, @Lydia. What's going on tomorrow?" And Lydia would then get a sort of notification pop up because I've mentioned her specifically in this team. I could also go and mention the whole team. So I could go @newbies, and nice to meet you. Great. Or I might a bit more playful and go in and have a look at some of the different stickers or memes or GIFs that I want to add into my new Teams channel. So you can restrict these sort of things. So if you don't want to allow users to use GIFs or memes or stickers, you can turn that off, or just set the level to moderate, or however you want to add these sort of stickers into your Teams chats. You can moderate that. But for now, let's just go in and put in something like this. Oh. And send that out. People in the team can then reply, respond. You can go in and say thumbs up. So you'll notice that down here, if I've mentioned the team, this little icon pops up over here. I can also go in and say, well, rather than just do a sort of new conversation, I want to do an announcement. So instead of new conversation, I can tap announcement, and I can say to this, everyone can reply, or you and moderators only can apply. Maybe I want to make this an important message so that it kind of stands out in the team channel, and I can make it look a little bit more attractive by uploading an image. And we can add a headline to say, welcome newbies. Type in a message, company meeting tomorrow join in person or via Teams. Send it out. And you'll see this will pop up with the exclamation mark, and then the picture is shown nicely in the team channel. So it kind of just stands out a little bit more within that channel, so it doesn't get lost in the noise of the conversation going on. A couple of other things that can be done if you're part of a couple of different teams, you'll see that the conversation thread can get pretty long, and so as you're catching up on the team channel, you may want to find a conversation that you've sort of want to go back to maybe at a later stage. So if you highlight or click on a conversation and you click the ellipses over here, you can say, let's save this message. So this could be something that you've kind of browsed through it, you want to get back to at a later stage. I can save that chat, and then at a later stage I might want to just go back and review the saved chat. So nice way to quickly highlight one or two things, and then at any stage I can go back and just view those saved chats that I've marked within those channels. So a nice, quick, easy way to get back to them, especially if you have a very active group of users in a team channel. Another nice feature that you get in Microsoft Teams, if you have users across different geographical locations in different countries, they might talk different languages, and you can enable the translate feature. So I can go in and hit the 3 buttons again and say translate, and that will then translate this from Greek into English, and hopefully you'll then be able to read it and reply. You could also go in and use the immersive reader. So depending on what type of users you have, from an accessibility perspective, you can enable immersive reader, and this is kind of part of the Microsoft Learning Tools capability. And you'll notice that this sort of popping up along across all the different Office applications. So in Word, PowerPoint, this immersive reader is always there and available to users to leverage. And so in here, then you have different capabilities where I can change the color of the background. I might want to highlight nouns, verbs, or if I want, I can translate from here into different language, for example. So maybe from English to Chinese, and by word or by document. And then I could also let it play back so really useful accessibility options for your users to be more inclusive and engaged within those team channels and chats. Another thing you'll notice that in a team channel, you'll have these tabs that show up on the top of the team. And so from here, you can have a look at conversations. You can also flick across to files, and this will be all the files and content that you're working on and in context of that team. And so, as I mentioned earlier, all of these are actually stored within SharePoint, but you never have to go into the back end of that SharePoint. I can also add tabs for say a project plan. So in the context of this research and development, we may have a Mark 8 project plan, and this just brings the Planner app into my team's environment. So the whole point here, I guess, is that your users keep focus throughout the day on a single app, instead of having to jump from Microsoft Teams into Planner, into Power BI, or into SharePoint. I can bring it all to them within the context of this team. So in Planner, yeah, I can create and add new tasks. I can move tasks to different buckets. I can get a quick view on the chart and who has outstanding or in progress actions. And I can also move across to have a look at what other tabs are available to me within this team channel. So wikis, BI dashboards. So if you're using Power BI today, you can pin a BI dashboard within your team as well, and it's interactive. So you get the full sort of Power BI experience from within that team channel as well. Another thing you might want to do is, if you're sort of collaborating and co-authoring a document, you can pin that as a tab as well. So we might be all working together on this document over here, and we're co-authoring and editing. And the nice thing is that you can also pop up the conversation view along the right hand side. So as you're sort of working on this document with your colleagues, and you have some questions, you can while you're co-authoring or editing, just use the conversation bar down the right hand side, and hey, we need to change the header, or whatever the case may be. And that'll all stay in context of the actual document that you're working on. It's a really useful way to be able to see and collaborate on documents. And you can edit this in line through Teams itself. So, making it easy to stay within that app and stay focused. But if you need to jump out and work in the rich featured version of Word, you can also pop this out and actually work on it in the full version of Microsoft Word as well. But in here, you can go in and change and edit and update the Word document. There's a lot of different tabs or apps that you can add into your Teams channel. So you'll notice that there's obviously a lot of the Microsoft apps that are available. We spoke about Word. We spoke about a couple of these, Power BI, Planner, but you may use a third-party app. And I guess a common one that we often come across is things like Trello. And you can look through the whole load of different apps that are available, and these are sort of getting updated monthly, so you'll notice that new ones sort of pop in here. And the nice thing is that you can also add your own custom apps. So if I go into manage apps, you'll see within the Teams group, I can have a look at the apps that are available for that team. And if you have any custom apps you want to sideload in, you can go in here and upload a custom app. And I've got one sort of enabled for an HR hiring Contoso board. And that's been uploaded as a custom app, and I'll show you how that one works in a minute. But the nice thing is, if you have any existing apps, like for example this HR talent board. So this is just an app that's been published in SharePoint Online, and we could be using this extensively. And as we migrate to Teams, instead of HR having to hop out of Teams and come to the SharePoint team site, I can add this as a custom app in Microsoft Teams. So you have created an HR talent development group, and in HR hiring, you'll see that I've got this Contoso hiring board, and this has just been added as another app within Teams. And because that hiring board has been built using the SharePoint framework, it's really easy to adapt that and add it into Microsoft Teams. So you'll see in here, I get the full functionality of that app that was running in SharePoint Online, and now it's showing up in Microsoft Teams. And I can do things like have a look at, who's interviewing for which specific roles, who's applied. I may want to change the current stage of from applied to interviewing. And you can also get things like add custom connectors, so that when a status changes, that the bot in Teams updates you and notifies you. So there's really a lot you can do with custom apps within and custom solutions within Microsoft Teams as well. I might want to just pin a new job role to a board as well, and this is where I can quickly see, any new jobs that we have posted, who's applied for them, who's screening, interviewing, and which ones are offered, and who those applicants are. So really nice, easy way to integrate your line of business apps into Microsoft Teams, just to, as I've said, keep the focus of work in a single application within Teams. And you'll notice as well that throughout using Microsoft Teams, I have this ability at the bottom to interact with different apps and bots as well. So in the context of the Contoso Talent bot, I might want to jump in there and just say, have a look at which positions are available, which candidates are there, and instead of me going to the app itself, I could jump in and just do a chat with it as well if I wanted to use natural query language to engage or interact with the talent app bot. So here I might want to have a look at what can I do, and I want to have a look at the top candidates. And the bot will hopefully come back to me and say, here's a list. Okay, we've got several positions available, and I want to know specifically for the senior designer role, which candidates are there. And I can jump in and have a look at Bart. Looks interesting. Let's get some more information about Bart. And I can see his sort of adaptive card that gets created using this talent bot. And these cards can kind of be used then for notifications, for conversational kind of topics. And I might also want to be able to go in here and create a new job application or new job posting, just leveraging the bot. So you can see there's lots you can do using custom apps within Microsoft Teams. And wanted to quickly give you a view on on how you could potentially look at leveraging bots inside Microsoft Teams as well. So some other interesting pieces that you might want to have a look at when in the groups piece is just to have a look at who actually and how much activity is happening inside your team. So if I have an existing group or team, I can go into manage team, have a look at the members, how many guests are in there, see what channels are created, what settings specifically for this group have been applied, and also quickly have a look at the analytics. So here, it's a nice way for you to gauge really quickly, is this team actually being used by all the members inside it? You might find that, maybe there's one individual that's posting or updating and having conversations, and maybe then it's not really worthwhile having that team, and you could focus your efforts somewhere else. But this is a really quick way to get some analytics around the activity of your users inside that team. So moving a little bit away from chats and collaboration now, obviously another core component of Microsoft Teams is the meeting experience. So if you have a look here, there's a couple of different ways you can start a meeting in Teams. You might be inside this team channel, want to start an ad hoc meeting, and I can quickly hit the Meet Now button. And we can add a subject, project meeting, because we might be chatting and somebody decides, well, instead of us all having a conversation and typing in text, let's just elevate this to a team video conference. Hello. So now this meeting has been started, and from here you can then obviously all jump onto the meeting. We can go out and share content, so we can share desktop, we can share specific applications, we might want to bring in a whiteboard, or we can go in and do something like, let's start a recording. So I can start recording this meeting, and maybe you may have a little bit of noise in the background or a whiteboard that you don't want anybody to see. So I can go out and blur my background so that you won't be able to see what's behind you. And in the future, there will be the ability to be able to put custom backgrounds behind you. So you could be working from home, but take a picture of your office and put it behind you, so it looks like you're kind of always working in the office. And from here, within the context of the meeting, we can call in other people, we can invite other participants. But once you're done, we'll hang up. And the nice thing is, and I guess where this really sort of differs from the Skype for Business experience, is that once you've completed that meeting and you've been recording it, it automatically gets uploaded into something called Microsoft Stream, which is a sort of YouTube for the organization, and that exists within Office 365. And it uploads the recording for you automatically there. You don't have to worry about where it's been saved. It posts it back into the channel where you had the meeting, and it also transcribes that meeting into text as well. So it could be that, for whatever reason, I was unable to make the meeting, and I want to jump in and have a look at what happened in that meeting. I can go back to that team meeting and review it. So I think I have an example of a project rollout meeting that was recorded previously, and I can pin that as a tab to that channel as well. And you'll see it's loads from Microsoft Stream. And instead of maybe listening to that whole video, because it could be an hour-long meeting, I might want to just go out and search for when I was mentioned. So I can go and search for Megan. So for today, I'm called Megan, and just have a look at where somebody actually mentioned my name within that meeting. So I can click on that piece over there, and it takes me to exactly that spot in the meeting where somebody spoke about me. And so instead of me watching the whole meeting just to see, somebody said Megan needs to organize catering for the next meeting, at least I can jump to that piece and get updated on what's going on straight from within Teams still. So not having to jump out to another place. It'll be all available for me within that stream that's been posted here as a tab. And so that's pretty much from a meeting experience. You have the ad hoc ability to create teams, but of course you can still go into your Teams calendar or your Outlook calendar and schedule a team how you would have done with Skype for Business Online. And that just adds the Teams URL into the invitation. If you've got audio conferencing, it'll add an audio bridge for you as well that you can dial into a meeting with, pretty much the same way that Skype for Business is doing it today. And you invite participants, external or internal, and send it out, and your users can join the team meetings, sort of the more traditional way. Of course, another way I can create Teams meetings is to go to the calendar button on the left-hand side, and here I can see all the Teams meetings that are up and coming. I can also create new Teams meetings, so I can click New Meeting, and here I have the ability to create a new meeting or a new live event. So you might want to have a live broadcast that's up to 10,000 people, and you can create the title for that in here, set it up, schedule it, add who the producers are or the presenters, and send that out. And then end users will be able to connect to that live broadcast via the browser and have the ability to download the content afterwards and review it at a later stage as well. The next piece is the calling functionality. So much like Skype for Business as well, you have the ability to use Microsoft Teams as your phone system. So that means that I can, of course, call members inside my organization. That'll be a typical sort of one-to-one voice over IP call. And you can use a headset, or you can use a handset. There's lots of different vendors now that are creating devices for Microsoft Teams. So if you prefer the more traditional handset approach, you can register those devices to Microsoft Teams in the cloud and use it as a Teams device that you can call external people or people inside your organization. So you can leverage Microsoft Teams as a phone system and purchase phone system licenses, as well as calling plans, and that could be domestic or international calling plans. Or if you prefer, you may want to connect it to your current on-premise infrastructure, and there's ways to do that as well. It's obviously a bit more detailed. So, if you want to learn more about how you can sort of integrate your current phone systems to Microsoft Teams, give us a shout and we can go into a bit more detail around how you can leverage things like direct routing to integrate your current environment into Microsoft Teams. And that's pretty much a quick and hopefully useful overview of Microsoft Teams. Like I said, and Saj mentioned earlier, we do have a couple of more in-depth sessions coming up over the next couple of months, so jump into our events section and book for one of those where we can go into a lot more detail on Teams. So I hope you all enjoyed our Teams demo today, and with that I'm going to hand back over to Saj.
Good morning, everyone, again. Thank you very much, Bruce. That was fantastic. I think I counted 25 items you mentioned in Teams, so that's brilliant. That's a lot to go through. Again, I will say this: we had to do a high level in 45 minutes. There's no way we can cover everything in Microsoft 365, let alone or in Teams, let alone Microsoft 365. So fantastic job there, Bruce. If you want to know more about this, please turn up to our workshops. These are one-day workshops at no charge. But as I said, we're doing a couple in London and a couple in Manchester. Now, to get the slides and the recording, there's a QR code. There's also a URL link in here. If you click onto that, that'll take you to our feedback form. And if you could just fill that in quickly and just submit that, that will be brilliant. And in that form is your email address. And what Cassie will do is later this week is, for those that return the forms, is send out the webinar and the PowerPoint. I believe we have a couple of questions, but before we go into the questions, I just want to go on a little bit about the experience of Microsoft 365 and Surface. It's great that we are talking about Microsoft 365, but to bring that whole experience together, okay, bringing that with the hardware and the workplace, we know is changing. We know that the culture of work is changing. If we can get our entire workforce properly engaged, we can increase productivity and profitability by 20%. We know that when I talk to customers, a lot of customers are saying, look, we're downsizing our buildings. We want to allow a lot of our staff to have that mobility, to allow to work from home. You know, we all have things that we need to do, and that flexibility goes a long, long way to people making decisions on where they want to work. Okay, and we know technology is a big thing and a big player in workplace. 84% of leaders believe that new technology will help them be more creative. Okay, and the reason why I say those sort of things is Microsoft really play a key player where all those three intersect. Okay, that center point. Microsoft is saying, look, we're putting people at the center. We know that hardware and software has to come together. Okay, and modern work requires modern devices. Okay. We know that people who leave university right now, people who've just left university, look at companies and look at the technologies those companies are using and make decisions on that. So if there's two companies that they've both been offered jobs, we know they'll take the job where there's more technology, a better technology infrastructure in place. We know that 50% of workforce will be mobile by 2020. Now, these are surveys done in America, but we know that it's following in the UK. 72% of workers believe that the future success depends on the ability to be creative. I'm not going to go through all these slides because we have gone over slightly, but what I really want to do is just highlight this one: the hardware and the software being built together, reliable and secure. Microsoft making sure that you make the most of things like Windows Hello, and we know that people and employees enjoy having a Surface and enjoy their machines, and if they've got a really swanky machine that they can take home, they're going to start using that for their home PC as well. Not, oh, I've got a nice machine at home, I'm going to bring that into work. It's going to be the other way around. But I'm going to go back to the slide to show you where our, bear with me. This is, please go to the URL tiny.cc/BW365 and fill in the feedback form. Okay, or if you've got a mobile phone, take that phone out, put the QR code in, and take the picture of the QR code, and that will take the link straight to the survey. While you're doing that, I know there's a couple of questions. Okay, so Bruce, are you on the line still? Okay, we have a couple of questions. Yeah. First one is, we have Office 365 license E3 and E1. Do we require any other licenses to enable to make calls with external companies? Okay.
Yeah, so if you are just sort of federated with those other teams, so other organizations are also using Teams or Skype for Business, you can leverage your E3 and E1 to have to call them. So that's just a sort of voice over IP connection, and there's no additional requirements. So your E3 and E1 will be perfectly fine. But if you wanted to call external organizations on their landline numbers or mobile phone numbers, then there's additional requirements or add-ons. So phone system add-on and calling plans that would be required to sort of use it as a phone system rather than just a voice over IP call.
Brilliant answer there, Bruce. And again, talk to us. Talk to the account manager at Bytes. We can help you with this. We know the Microsoft plans can be a little bit expensive. So what we'll do is look at what you're trying to do, look at the plans, and look at whether it's best to go 100% Microsoft or whether there are other ways of doing it. There could be a hybrid solution with your current PBX situation that you have at the moment. So, can members of a team be excluded from a particular channel? So at the moment, the answer is no to that. Okay. However, Microsoft is bringing that in. Okay. We know that's coming. That's on the roadmap. We know that they've sort of developed them. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Bruce. I believe that's in beta at the moment, or pre-beta, isn't it?
Yeah, they've you know, some of the demos I've seen that Microsoft have done, they've showcased it, so it's definitely there. It's it'll be coming out hopefully in the next month or two, but it's on the roadmap. It's something that a lot of users have actually requested using user voice, and so it's one of the priorities to get out in the next sort of versions of Microsoft Teams. Definitely something coming soon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been on the roadmap for a while, so we know it will be out soon. Does Teams integrate with link room systems? My answer is this has just been released, and this was the new rooms systems that are in Teams.
Yeah, so there's depending on the type of link room system you have, some of the vendors that created those link room systems have released new firmware. So if you wanted to register with Teams, you need the new firmware installed. So there's ways to update the firmware on your existing link room systems, to upgrade it to Microsoft Teams, and then you'd be able to join those meetings with those link room systems. So have a look and ask your vendors whether or not they've got upgraded firmware available for your devices. And once you have the new firmware on, you can register that into Teams and leverage the full Teams experience as a Teams room system, rather than using the sort of more outdated legacy link room system firmware on those devices.
Brilliant. I guess this is next. It's for marketing, really. Can you email the dates for the London workshops, please? So there will be on our website. So it's bytes.co.uk/events. If you wish to go there, what I will also do is for those that fill in the feedback form is make sure that Cassie also puts the dates of the London dates as well as the Manchester dates for you. The next one is. Do your workshop cover the admin side of Teams? So we don't cover too much on the admin side of Teams, but we will. If that's what you want, then speak to the account manager that you have at Bytes, and we're more than happy to do a one-to-one session with you. Or that might be something that I put towards our marketing department and see if we can do a workshop just around the admin side of Teams. So if that's what you want on the feedback form, put that down somewhere saying that's what you like to see. More than happy to do that. Do you have any guidance notes on migrating from Skype to Teams? Wow, where do we start with this? There's quite a lot of information out there. There's a lot of TechNet articles and guidance out there from Microsoft directly. Again, speak to your account manager and they're more than happy to get us involved, and we're happy to do a one-to-one call with you to give you some guidance. But if you put that on your feedback form, I'm more than happy. Cassie, would you just remind me to send you the TechNet article links of where those migration documents are for you. Teams file storage, I know, is 25 terabytes per site collection. Does that include all files and recordings as well? Okay, so that includes the files, but it doesn't include the recordings. The recordings go into Stream. Okay, and Stream has a separate storage facility or storage allowance. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Bruce. I believe it's 500 gigabytes off the top of my head. And the reason why I say I believe it's 500 from last month, that's what it was. Being cloud month on month, these things change. But from last month, I can safely say it was 500 gigabytes for recordings alone.
Yeah, yeah, I think if you just search sort of Microsoft Stream limits, you can have a look at what those are. But there's always ways to add additional storage if you run out of existing.
Okay, I was just corrected. It's bytes.co.uk/company/events for our events. So whoever sent that in, who was that? P. Thomas, thank you very much. You saved me there. Thank you. We can't always be right. Next question. So Skype Business is out of support in July. So Skype for Business Online is out of business. Okay. Skype for Business Server will still go on for a little bit longer. So anyone new, as my colleague Bruce said, that is coming on to Office 365 and they're less than 500 users will just automatically get Teams. In fact, I believe that actually all users from now on are just going to get Teams. But if you're existing Skype user online, Skype for Business Online, then you can continue to 2021. But Skype for Business Server, yes, that will continue a little bit longer. If we don't currently have an 365 subscription, can we purchase Teams? You cannot purchase Teams as a standalone product at the moment, or today you cannot. It will have to be in one of those SKUs that we talked about. And you can buy an Office 365 F1 SKU. On top of my head, I don't know what the exact cost is, but I think it's around the £3 to £4 mark per user. Okay, you get a smaller inbox size for your emails. You get a smaller. You can't create a team. You can't be a owner, but you can become a member of the teams. So you probably will want to buy one full license of E1 or an E3 license.
Yeah.
Is it possible to arrange generic user training workshops once we decide to migrate? Absolutely. So if you're looking to migrate to Teams platform company-wide, we have a whole training department. Okay, I'm glad this question was asked. It's fantastic that you design, you develop, and you deploy this technology. Great, we all know how to do that. Where I'm seeing success is people who have a change management methodology as well. Training is just as important. If the people don't know how to log in, if the people do not know how to use the product, guess what? They're not going to use the product effectively. Okay, so yes, we have a whole training department. Again, myself and Bruce are more than happy to talk to you about this, but we're also happy to pass you on to Rachel, who's head of our training department, who's got plenty of courses, and she can tailor make those courses for your company. Okay, do you have a particular license for Stream? Yes, you can actually buy Stream on its own. Again, if we put that into the feedback form, I will get to one of the licensing people to do the exact price of that. Okay, we have overrun quite a bit. It was only supposed to be a 45-minute session, and again, we had to cover quite a lot. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Again, please send back the feedback forms, and we'll do another webinar, because this one's been so popular, in a couple of weeks' time. But again, both Bruce and I would love to see you at our workshops, wouldn't we, Bruce? He's got a
Yes,
shy
indeed, we will. Yeah, sorry, I'm being
there you go.
of it.
There you go, shy. Okay, well, that's it, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.